I do think my TradFi background has helped a lot. And I know within CT there's an aversion to TradFi, and there's this idea of TradFi being mid-curved and all that kind of stuff. I think to a certain extent all of that is true. However, things that I learned in my job are stuff like risk discipline, it's stuff like understanding how to raise capital, it's like understanding how to invest, it's understanding how to spend capital, understanding growth, understanding where companies have gone wrong by spending too much cash or not spending enough cash. You know, all these kinds of things, like, I find quite helpful.
Are you a crypto project with a drink, or are you a drinks company with a crypto token?
Yeah, really good question. So we're a crypto company with a drink. That's how I view it. You know, we started in crypto. Rekt Guy was a crypto project. We have zero experience in CPG, drinks, beverages. Our expertise is in crypto. So we're definitely a crypto company with a drink. And that's how I phrase it and pitch it to people.
All right, GM, and welcome to another episode of the OGC podcast, the podcast that is diving into crypto growth and focuses on interviews with growth leaders as well as founders that move the space forward. And today we have a very exciting builder and founder here, Ovie Faruq, better known as OSF on crypto Twitter. He's been building the Rekt empire for a couple of years now, and I'm very excited to unpack all of this with him today. So welcome to the show, Ovie.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on, Norman. Thank you.
Amazing. Ovie, let's start with a very brief introduction about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, I'm Ovie. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Rekt Brands. It's a project that was born from the Rekt Guy NFT collection that I made in 2022. My background is not actually in crypto. I was in traditional finance for about 10 years. I worked as a trader at Barclays Capital, doing high yield and distressed credit and credit derivatives, and then moved into crypto in 2021.
Yeah, and since then I've been following your journey for quite some time, and you've been very active. You've been kind of, from my perspective, riding all the different ups and downs and metas. So very, very interested to get your take on a couple of growth topics today. Before we do this though, I want to start with a little opening exercise here. It's called This or That, and I'm going to give you a couple of pairs, two terms, and you just have to pick one. You cannot skip. You have to pick one. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do it.
Soda or beer?
Beer.
Oh. Snoop
I shouldn't
Dogg.
say that, should I?
Snoop Dogg or Eminem?
Snoop Dogg.
Drunk decisions or sober planning?
Drunk decisions.
Apple or lime?
Apple.
Wall Street or crypto Twitter?
Crypto Twitter.
New York or London?
London.
Art or PFPs?
Art.
Fungible or non-fungible?
That's a tough one. I would say fungible.
Mm-hmm. Discord or Telegram?
Telegram.
Ethereum or Solana?
Ethereum.
Roadmap or no roadmap?
No roadmap.
Diamond hands or flipping?
Diamond hands.
Equity or tokens?
Tokens.
Brand coin or meme coin?
Brand coin.
Yeah, okay. So that's the transition into our later conversation. Anyone of the pairs that stand out to you? The toughest one was, which one was the toughest?
Fungible and non-fungible was a tough one because I think there's benefits to both. I think they're just different things. Like, I don't necessarily have a preference for one or the other. Art makes sense as a non-fungible token. A brand coin makes sense as a fungible token. So I think they're two very different things. It's hard to pick one or the other, I would say.
Yeah. Seems like the focus has shifted a lot towards fungible tokens again. So I hope at some point the non-fungible stuff is going to be fun again and going to come back, because I also do think that I think it will.
I think it will. I think we're close to that stuff coming back. So I'm hopeful for sure.
Cool. All right. You mentioned in your intro that you have a TradFi background. I guess you've been discussing this a couple of times in the past, but I still want to start here and hear how you got into crypto from being in TradFi, and then what was this transition like, and how do you think today, even fast forwarding now to Rekt Brands, how did the kind of TradFi education help you in crypto and becoming one of the core figures here?
Yeah, so I think I do think my TradFi background has helped a lot, and I know within CT there's an aversion to TradFi, and there's this idea of TradFi being mid-curved and all that kind of stuff, and I think it's to a certain extent I think that's true. Sorry, I hope you don't hear that. You hear that knocking in the background? Okay, perfect. I think to a certain extent all of that is true. However, things that I learned in my job are stuff like risk discipline. It's stuff like understanding how to raise capital. It's like understanding how to invest. It's understanding how to spend capital, understanding growth, understanding where companies have gone wrong by spending too much cash or not spending enough cash. All these kinds of things, like, I find quite helpful. Yes, these aren't required knowledge, and you can learn many of these things from experience, but I do feel like a lot of it has helped me to be successful in trading crypto, but also be successful in everything with Rekt, because I've just seen examples of things that have worked and examples of things that haven't worked. And obviously I'm trying to replicate the ones that have worked. So it's still a very mid-curved world for sure. And I think these guys still don't really seem to fully understand crypto and the power it has. But there are definitely lessons and principles from it that I think are useful in this world. And my idea is that you kind of want to combine the best of both. It's not like one is good, one is bad. Both have their merits, both have their disadvantages. But if you can take and combine the merits together, then I think that's where the opportunity is to create something that can be quite special.
And can you think of something very specific, like something where you think, oh, I'm observing stuff on crypto Twitter or amongst your peers in the crypto space, where you feel like you had a real advantage because of that 10-year TradFi experience? Because for me personally, I no real exposure to the finance world, prior to crypto, and I definitely can see a lot of gaps in like my behavior when I'm trading, when I don't have risk discipline, all these kind of things. So do you know something very specific where that you can think of where that kind of sets you maybe apart to a certain extent because you have this background?
Yeah, I mean, look, what I traded in TradFi was a very volatile asset. So things would go from 0 to 100 really quick, and they would go from 100 to 0 really quick as well. And it's also an OTC market. So, there's no exchange, for example. So in terms of trading NFTs, it was all done OTC, right? There's no like necessarily NFT exchange. I know you have marketplaces, but you're buying from another person, right? Or you're selling to another person's. I think having an appreciation for the volatility and knowing like, oh, well, people think this thing can do a 2x, but I understand that it can do 100x because that's how crazy it can get because there's very little supply, or vice versa. People thinking, oh, this can only drop down 10% or 20%. And I feel like I have an appreciation for like, oh, this could be down 99% and then be down another 99% because that's how these things work. So I think like understanding volatility and also like fat tails, there's fat tails in terms of tail risk, and you can have very extreme price action. And I felt like what I traded in my old job was very extreme, but this is like another level of extremity because you have, people who don't necessarily have trading backgrounds or finance backgrounds or even crypto backgrounds, but who all have the ability to just like buy and sell and swing for the fences basically. And that, I think, price action in crypto gets governed a lot by human psychology. And that's the very thing that I think causes that volatility, I think, because people are very quick to jump onto a bandwagon, whether that's to buy or sell.
Cool. And walk us through kind of your main milestones when entering the crypto space? I know there's this infamous story. I don't know if it's really true that you minted like 150 Bored Apes, which set you up for success later on when you sold them with a good timing. But yeah, like walk us through the kind of your key milestones in your crypto journey towards launching Rekt and everything that came with it.
Yeah, when I first got into crypto, I was kind of buying Bitcoin, ETH, and that kind of stuff. Then I got into NFTs, and primarily I was just buying like art, like one-of-ones and that kind of stuff. I hadn't really done the PFP thing, but I just quit my job at the time, and I'd been out and had quite a lot to drink. And I remember just browsing through my phone and seeing this Bored Apes thing, and I went onto their website. I saw lots of people minting them, and I went onto their website, and the website was done like really professionally. Like prior to this, I think people forget it was all very low quality, kind of like unprofessional. Things didn't look like they were legit, but this looked really legit. And it was the first NFT collection that spoke about like, hey, this is the Bored Ape Yacht Club. It's going to be a members club. It's going to have all these like different benefits and that kind of stuff. And that now seems like a very common theme or a common idea. But back then, that was the first time I ever saw something that explicitly stated that. And this is kind of around the time when punks were going a lot higher as well. And people were like, oh, this is like the exclusive club and all that kind of stuff. So,
and it's early 2021, right?
Yes, this is like April 2021. So, yeah, like I was pretty drunk and I was just like kind of randomly gambling on stuff. But there were a few things which made me feel like, oh, this maybe could be something that I could see people get behind. So I minted some, and then I saw you could watch like the amount of supply left, and they were minting out very fast. So I could see like, oh man, this thing's going to mint out like so quickly, which means because I think they were unminted for a while, but it started to pick up momentum. And then I could see, okay, this thing's going to sell out in a few minutes, and it's going to go higher. Like it's clearly going to go higher. And I thought to myself, well, even if I don't hold these for a long time, I know I'm going to be able to flip them and make some good money once it's minted out. So that's why I ended up minting 150 apes, because I was like, I'm going to be able to flip these straight away. So I minted them all out. And then as soon as it minted out and they're revealed and everything, it was immediately, it was up like 5x or 6x. And then I ended up selling half of what I had basically over the next few minutes and hours. But, at this point in time, I didn't really realize what it was going to become. I just knew as a short-term trade, I'd end up making money on it. But, I ended up combining my portfolio with my friend Mando, Michael, and we ended up having 72 apes, which we held through all the different airdrops like ApeCoin, Other Side, Mutants, etc. And yeah, I think that was I had like 2 or 3 small wins before that, but this was like the first big win that we had, I think. And it definitely gave me a lot of capital to do other things within crypto, which is like to trade other stuff. And, I felt like I was quite early to the meme coin stuff in 2023. So I had capital to gamble on that stuff basically. But it also gave me capital to be fine from like a personal living standpoint, and then work on the Rekt stuff without having to like think about, one of the reasons why I think Rekt was so successful is because we never really monetized anyone, and we didn't take in much or any money really until we started selling drinks, which was just 9 months ago. But we had an ability to do that because we didn't like need the money, if that made sense. And I think that's one of the reasons why Rekt was so successful, I think.
And how much of, let's say, of this imagination that you inserted into Bored Ape Yacht Club back then, and how a club can be formed, and how much is left for you today in building the Rekt vision? I mean, I feel like I was onboarded mostly through NFTs as well, and I feel like a lot of the fantasy that was put into this primitive is gone by now. You have a few projects that are still around. Obviously Pudgies. I think you guys are kind of, the up and comers now when it comes to, building a brand, building IP, and you're trying to tap into new territories. Did this inform the stuff that you're doing a lot today, or would you say this is rather unrelated?
No, it's definitely related. It's not exactly the same thing, but I think everything sort of has a story and a background. And for me, like, I didn't just wake up and think, oh, I'm going to make a drinks company or I'm going to turn Rekt into a drinks company. There's different stages where it's like, okay, Rekt Guy was just a free mint and I had no plans for it. And I kind of thought it would just die. And then it didn't die. And then it built quite a strong following. And then we had 2 years later, we had like a really strong community. And that's when we realized, okay, there's something here. There's some IP or brand value here, community value. Maybe we should try and do something with real world products, kind of like how Pudgy Penguins did it successfully. And that's how we landed on drinks. So it's all related in terms of we wouldn't have done B without having done A. However, it's not like we had these ideas to begin with from day one, basically.
Yeah. I mean, let's move into your Rekt brand. So you've been trading NFTs. You've been, super active in the space. You've built your following. And then at some point, I think you started with one of ones, if I'm not mistaken. And then at some point you also created this PFP. So yeah, walk us through what that meant, because I guess you haven't been like a public artist up until then. You haven't really been a content creator. You haven't really been an influencer. So like all of this happened with you also, like personally, through crypto. So I'm very curious in like, the personal learnings in, being exposed through a floor price or, prices going up and down and all these kind of things. So yeah, walk us through your transition into, being a creator, an artist, a KOL essentially from, previously being in TradFi. So what was it like?
Yeah, it's a bit weird. It just happened quite randomly, really. Like, I started out by collecting art, and because lots of artists were trying to sell NFTs, they would follow all the collectors, and that's how I started to gain a following. Did some good trades in NFTs, and I think people are obviously looking for success signals, and I gained a bit more of a following that way. When I minted all those apes, gained a lot of following that way as well, because people are like, who is this person that just like did this, right? It was just, I wasn't focused on building a following. I was just focused on doing what I was doing, which was mostly trading. But you organically get that following, right? If you do things that are successful or turn heads, people will start following you. So I didn't really think much of it. Like it was kind of fun to have people following what you're doing, and everyone likes that attention to some degree, and the dopamine hits from getting likes and all that kind of stuff. But my goal, I still don't view myself as a KOL, don't view myself as an influencer, don't view myself as a content creator. I don't want to be any of those things. I have zero interest to any of those things, which is why I've never done any promotional work, or I've invested in stuff that I think are good projects, but I've never done any promotional work, and I never will do. I find that stuff like just disingenuous in my opinion. So, I don't view myself as any of those things. I don't want to be any of those things. I don't have any interest to influence people. But what I like doing is talking about my thoughts, talking about my trades, talking about my ideas. And I like people to hear them out. And even if they don't agree with them or disagree with them, then that's fine. But I like people to hear them out, because I do think I have some interesting ideas. And I do think the space is interesting. And I am passionate about markets, so I like to speak about that and have discourse on that. So that's kind of how I view my platform. It's nice to be heard by random people. Like that's quite a unique thing that I think anyone with a following has. And it has its, it's a blessing and a curse, but it's quite nice to put random thoughts out there on Twitter, just in public, and you get some feedback from it. So that's kind of how I view it, really. But I know the reality is it's morphed into something else now. But I just try to be myself and also like not give in to things just for likes or just for following. Like I'm very adamant of like just doing things the way that I want to do it, and being myself on my timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, before unpacking the brand universe of Rekt, one thing that stood out for me at the time, and I don't know if you did that purposely, you released the Rekt PFP as a free mint, it kind of took off, and then at some point it really seemed like you purposely wanted to detach this from any anticipation of like a roadmap or like a company. Like you purposely like I think you laid out like how you see everything play out. And can you go back in time and explain to the audience why you did that? Like what was your rationale to, purposely try to say, hey, Rekt, it's just this fun project. There's nothing that you guys can expect. Like, can you walk us through these thoughts back then?
Yeah, like I just, I started making some one-of-ones, and some artwork, and there was a recurring character in it, which is the Rekt Guy character. And I thought it would be cool as a PFP project. The other thing is lots of PFP projects at this point in time were sort of like these cute pastel colored, like fluffy animal type things. And I thought in my head, a cool concept for it would be like, instead of having these pastel colored backgrounds, you have like a black background and like bright neon, drawings over it, sort of like inverting that cute meta, if that makes sense. So I thought that would just be like a cool art project. And because by this time I had some sort of a following, I didn't want people to think, oh, this is the reason why it was a free mint, is because I didn't want people to think, oh, he's just making this thing and trying to make money from it. Like that really wasn't the objective. If it was, I would have charged for it. So number one, that's why it was a free mint. I didn't want to profit from it. It was just like an experimental idea that I had, which I thought was kind of cool. And the second thing is I didn't want anyone to have any expectations from it either. It's like, this really is just a random art experiment by myself. I don't want people to, buy one in the secondary market and then have expectations of me working on it or fulfilling a roadmap or anything. And my intention was to never work on it, by the way. Like I was just going to like mint it. It was kind of cool. And that was it. I had literally had zero plans for it. And that's what I wanted the expectation to be. So I was very clear about that when we launched it, but a lot of hype built up into it. Then it started doing really well. And I think people liked it. I think people liked that it was free. People liked that it was honest. I think people liked that we weren't trying to, hype things up with this crazy roadmap. I think just they liked it for what it was. And I think that's when I realized that, oh, maybe I should work on it because there's something here. And I couldn't figure out what that was exactly, but I always knew there was something there. And it was just a case of letting that right thing come to us, basically.
Mm-hmm. And then at some point you decided to launch the Rekt token. Was there any like major milestone in between, or was that, if you explain it to an outsider, was that kind of the next major thing, or how do you describe that, evolution to a TradFi person today?
The evolution, I would say, is we made the Rekt Guy NFT project. We felt like there was strong IP in Rekt as a brand, and we wanted to use that IP to make a product, like a normal product. We decided on drinks because they're cheap to manufacture. You can mass produce them. It's a really good organic way to get the brand out in as many places as possible. The next thing that we did is we gifted equity in the company to our NFT holders. We formed Rekt Brands Inc., which would be the sort of like the parent company for Rekt, and every Rekt Guy NFT was able to claim some equity in the company. So the community really, really did have ownership of it. And then we decided to make the token because, 2024, I think, showed us that NFTs were kind of dead, or it was very hard to get capital into NFTs, but there was a lot of capital going into coins, namely meme coins. And we've always been like a meme based project. So like a Rekt token or a Rekt coin just made a ton of sense for what we were doing. And, obviously that the idea of the token has sort of evolved into a brand coin, which I would say is still a subcategory of the meme coin sector. But it was clear we needed to have like some sort of a fungible token that was liquid, that could attract a bigger audience to, like turbocharge what we were doing, basically.
And how is so first of all, can you share a stat? How many Rekt Guy holders actually claimed the equity? Because I guess there's a conversion rate that's probably not 90%, but how many claims did you see once you announced that program?
Yeah, so I would say we had a total of 3,300 holders at the time, and about 1,000 people claimed a share, so a third.
Okay.
It ended up being 50% of the total claim pool because it was 100 shares per Rekt Guy.
That's strong. That's
But
strong.
yeah, about a third of people actually claimed.
Super interesting. Is there any interaction with these folks today? Like, did you ever think of like a DAO type of experience where people can vote on certain things, or is this too?
No, I don't believe in DAOs. I don't believe in DAOs. I hate DAOs. I think if you want to get anything done, you should not have a DAO.
I agree.
You should not have a DAO. DAOs are maybe good for an investment. DAO is good.
Yeah.
Investment DAO is interesting, pooling together capital. But to have a DAO to effectively manage a company, I think is one of the most ineffective and inefficient things you can do, in my opinion.
So these holders are really just like passive shareholders, and that's it. All right, that makes sense. And then how does your I mean, I guess it's the special thing that you guys do is you build a new brand, that's, I mean, I hope I don't step on your toes, but it reminds me of all these, Twitch streamers and YouTubers, all of these folks launch like, I don't know, iced teas or whatever, right? It's like, it's a little bit like that. And again, I'm not saying you're an influencer or KOL anymore, but now you guys sprinkle that, you sprinkle tokens on top, which is very new and very interesting. And I think a very, very unique experiment if you zoom out. Like there's not many projects or companies that do it, and you guys seem to really be able to scale it. So again, zooming out, even for a Web2 audience, you're building a beverage brand and you sprinkle tokens on top. What changes when you do that?
So brands have always had loyalty programs. They've always given out cash prizes or win a holiday or whatever it is. But there's multiple problems with this stuff. When they give out these one-off big rewards, only a handful of people ever win them. Not many people win them. So you don't evoke that feeling of like, oh, I won. I feel, really loyal to this brand in a large amount of people. You only ever achieve the, oh, let me buy this so I can win, buy the lottery ticket component of it. And then the problem with loyalty points is you can't trade them. They have no monetary value. They have infinite supply. You're at the, mercy of the issuer of the loyalty points program. And they only really work for like really coveted things like air miles. Like air miles loyalty programs work well because people want to get free flights. They're expensive. Hotels kind of work as well. There's a handful of things, but like who cares about, let me ask you this, like how many people in the world care about a loyalty program for buying drinks? Very little, very few people. How many people care about making money from buying drinks? Well, suddenly everyone's like, well, what do you mean making money from buying drinks? Like, how do I understand that? Right. And I think this is the thing about crypto being used as a reward and this whole idea behind a brand coin. It actually rewards people in an item, an asset that has value. You can literally like get the money and go and sell it on an exchange and get the money into your bank account. It's real money. I think
you need to explain the mechanism that you guys leverage here, that you buy a can and then you can redeem a portion of your token treasury. Maybe you need to explain this.
Yes. So to roll it back a couple of steps, the way that we've set things up is when you purchase Rekt drinks, you're able to earn or claim some Rekt coin from purchasing it. And Rekt coin is what we call the brand coin. It's the coin that underpins the entire ecosystem. The Rekt token doesn't own any IP, doesn't benefit from any of the revenues. It's not shares or stocks in the company. It's just a meme coin that moves up or down based on the underlying sentiment of the brand. But every time you purchase drinks, you're able to claim some of this coin. if you buy a Coca-Cola, for example, you buy the drink and that's it. You just buy the drink, you drink it, and then you move on with your day. If you have a local challenger brand that you want to support, how do you support it? You buy their products, you maybe share the link with your friends, tell your family about it. And if they kill it in 5 years' time, what do you have to show for it as someone who was part of their success? Nothing really, other than bragging rights. Now, if you buy a Rekt drink, you earn some Rekt coin. And if Rekt Brands does really well over the next few weeks, months, years, whatever that time frame is, that token should go up because people express their sentiment in that brand from buying that token. And obviously, I think our token is up something like 3,000% in the last 4 or 5 months. And that's because we've had these big sales and sellouts and that kind of stuff. So, it's a short period of time and we have to see if it works in every single market environment. But so far, the thesis seems to hold where if the brand visibility or the brand value improves, people will express that sentiment by buying and selling this token, which still is just a meme token. It's not security or anything. It's just a meme token. So I think that's how this whole thing, fits together, where it's like, compared to loyalty programs and that kind of stuff, you were never really getting paid or getting anything that was like really worth your while. And if it was worth your while, it was only given to a handful of people, not to a large amount of people. Whereas this is the same uniform rewards for every single person out there. There's no lottery aspect to it. There's something that has value.
And the tokens that you give out, these come from the company's treasury, correct? Is there any limitations here, or do you think you can go on with that program for a long period of time, or is that incentive going to go away at some point?
Yeah, it's a good point. 34% of the total token supply is held by the Token Foundation, and those are the coins that end up being given out as rewards for certain drinks and that kind of stuff. So that is a fixed supply. Right now, the value of it is about $200 million. So there's a lot of, time and flexibility that can be used to distribute it. But yeah, theoretically, at some point in time, that ends up, it ends up ending. But the idea is that this allows us to compete with bigger brands. It allows us to sell a large volume of drinks. It allows us to build that brand reputation and visibility and loyalty. And the hope is that once, it will take years and years to get through that. But hopefully after those years and years, Rekt has become big enough such that, it stands on its own 2 feet without that stuff, right? But if we were a brand new drinks brand without the crypto side of things, unless you have something really special or you have some really good contacts or whatever it is, it's very hard to even think about competing in that space, I think.
Yeah, no, I really like that experiment. As I said before, I feel like the term that comes to mind. So in the early days of the NFT space, I heard the term brand energy a couple of times, and it feels like that brand token tokenizes that brand energy, right? If the sentiment goes down, the token price goes down. If sentiment goes up, the token price goes up. So I feel like it's a very interesting experiment. How do you guys feel today? Are you a crypto project with a drink, or are you a drinks company with a crypto token?
Yeah, really good question. So we're a crypto company with a drink. That's how I view it. We started in crypto. Rekt Guy was a crypto project. We have zero experience in CPG, drinks, beverages. Our expertise is in crypto. So we're definitely a crypto company with a drink. And that's how I phrase it and pitch it to people. And I think that's fine.
I guess the vision would be to, at some point, if you really want to go mainstream, this needs to flip at some point, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think, as the drink stuff grows, it starts to have the dynamics of more of a drinks company, right? But ultimately, none of this would work without the crypto angle. And that's the thing. That's the engine. That's what makes it work. So that's kind of, I think, how I'll continue to view it.
And we slowly need to wrap it up, but I want to touch on the mainstream Web2 adoption and distribution that you guys have been tapping into. So I know that you're in 7-Elevens listed, I guess. I don't know if that's like a permanent thing or was more like a pop-up thing, but I'm curious to hear your learnings so far in exactly that jump from being that crypto brand or like that crypto project that now, sells drinks as almost like a merch item? Like, have you seen early signs of normies just like seeing it in 7-Eleven, or like has there been like any early signs of normies buying these drinks and being completely unaware that there's actually a crypto company behind it? Because I feel like this is what happens with all these influencer brands and like Twitch streamers, already. And I'm wondering if you guys see some early signs or early learnings when it comes to that transition.
Yeah. Let me give you some interesting stats, actually. When we did the first drink sale, about 50% of our payments were in crypto, 50% were in fiat, and only 50% of people claimed their rewards. Somewhere, somehow, were normies buying it, about half of our sales.
But that was purely online, or that was...
just online.
Okay.
Yeah, only online. The second sale that we did, again, purely online, 63% of our sales were in fiat. So there seems to be some people buying fiat. The 7-Eleven thing, it was more of a pop-up style thing, I would say, but we ended up selling out of our drinks within a few hours in each store that we had. Half of it was like our community turning up to buy the drinks to get the rewards. The other half are normal people just trying to figure out why everyone is buying these drinks. How do I, people without wallets thinking, how do I claim this $100? How do I actually get it into real money, or all that kind of stuff?
Is it $100 right now? No.
Well, no, we had a specific activation for the 7-Elevens, which was spend $10 on drinks and be able to claim $100 in Rekt coin. So I do think we're starting to see like some normies come into it, and there is a normie presence there. We've done a lot of like Web2 sponsorships and activations and that kind of stuff, and more stuff in the traditional world. So, and the feedback on the drink itself as a product is quite strong, actually. Like, people like it. People like the taste. People like the look and feel of it. So, we've been working on going more mainstream this year, and we will have other larger store launches in the US and in Europe as well. And that will be the real test. It's like, will we really get just like normal people buying this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very interesting. I could go on for a lot longer here, but I'm trying to stay within 30 minutes to not make it too long. No, I think what you guys do is amazing. I really kind of admire how you push through, with these early like NFT ideas, and like you just like, adjusting as you go, and like you're finding your way and reinventing yourself. So I think it's super exciting to follow that. Is there anything you want people to check out, you want to share before we wrap it up?
Yeah, the only thing I would say to check out is if you're not familiar with the whole brand coin stuff and the Rekt stuff, I would really encourage people to read the pinned post on my Twitter, OSF_Rekt. I've written like a couple of paragraphs on what brand coins are. For those who like to read longer form content, I've written a whole light paper on the brand coin thesis, which is also viewable on that post as well. So those are the two things I'd recommend people check out.
Amazing. And I'll make sure to prominently link these. All right. Ovie, thank you so much for being on here. Maybe we'll repeat this in after you had your next wave of store entries. Thank you so much, and take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.